Well, I work on virus, HIV mostly, HIV-1 and HIV-2, but also hepatitis virus and yellow fever virus, and in Africa. Almost all my work is done in Africa, in Portuguese-speaking Africa, mostly in Mozambique, Angola, and Cape Verde. And what we try to do is to look at the molecular epidemiology of these viruses, how they appeared in these countries, how they are transmitted in these countries, what are the main causes of transmission, how can we prevent transmission, how can we treat these infections. And that's one part of my work. The other part is more molecular, and it's related mostly with HIV-2, and in this case in Portugal. And here we try to see how the virus evolves in infected individuals in association with the antibody response, and try to identify the epitopes of this neutralizing antibody response and use this information to produce vaccines against HIV-2 and HIV-1. So we try to learn from HIV-2 to transport for HIV-1, and we are having interesting results suggesting that HIV-2 can indeed be a good model to produce more adequate vaccine for HIV in general. We also try to mix HIV-1 and HIV-2 whenever possible, and so we try to make chimeras of the envelope glycoprotein, and then use these chimeras to vaccinate different animal models like mice and rabbits, and see if these new proteins, these recombinant proteins, are induce better antibody responses against both types of virus. So the idea is to build a universal vaccine for both viruses. And that's it.
And why do you work in Africa?
I work in Africa because I have lived in Africa for the first 9 years of my life. And because it is in Africa that the burden of HIV disease is higher, and also hepatitis and arboviruses, the burden is much higher in Africa than anywhere else. And that's where the patients, the most patients in need, the vulnerable patients, and we have good connections. We have established good connections over the years with Angola, Mozambique, and as I said previously, Cape Verde, and so we get samples from there. We try to do research in the places in these countries also, but with samples from these individuals from these countries, we try to propose new strategies for prevention, for treatment, for diagnosis also. So we feel that they need our efforts much more than Portugal, and so that's why I try to do my research in Africa.